Okay. Good. Tov. Shavua Tov. Good week to everybody. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Judaism.Chabad in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We greet this new week. Carla, good morning. Thank you for joining. Nitin from Canada. Oh, fellow Canadian. Beautiful. Thank you for joining. Davida and Liba from New York. Good foch. Welcome. DJ, all the way in Australia. Shavua Tov. A good evening. Late night. Leslie in North Carolina. Welcome. Karen, good morning. Tim in Texas. Shavua Tov. Irma is in New Jersey. Welcome. Who else do we have joining us today? We have Vilma and Shmuel, Carol, Benjamin, Moshe, Tim, David, Yvette, Michael, Avshalom, Alex, Yitzchak. Okay. Luna, we have Mendy, Israel. Okay. We have a little time change today. Usually we're 10:30 on Sundays. But it's other responsibilities, so it's 15 minutes early, and I think not everybody got the message. But Margot Lozata in Poland did. Good week. Shavua Tov. Rena in Colorado. Boker Tov. Heather in Connecticut. Welcome. And Michael in Virginia. Good morning. Laura's in Nashville with us. Yeah. Okay. So my apologies for those who didn't see. But, yes. We continue in the 25th letter, this foundational teachings about divine providence, about anger management, and how we can really deal with that. How we can understand Creator within creation. So what we posed, the Alter Rebbe posed previously, is the Talmud tells us that someone who gets angry is like an idolater. What does that mean, that they're like an idolater? Idolater meaning that they don't believe in the presence of God. Well, in the moment of anger, you don't believe in the presence of God. Why? Because whatever happened to you, even though someone may have, let's say, said something nasty, or hurt you physically or financially, which they are responsible for, absolutely responsible for, so that's a non-starter. Yet at the same time, and this is where it's tricky, if they're responsible totally for their actions, for their words, right, either in a court of law, if there's a financial loss that you incurred by someone else, physical harm, God forbid, or by the hands of heaven because this person is not nice, right? So absolutely true, but at the same time, the fact that a person is affected, and this is the key, the consequence of a choice of an individual, that's already divinely orchestrated. As I gave the example, a friend of mine who was walking in New York City once on a misty day, hey, something like here in Montreal today, and a teenage kid comes out of nowhere with a gun and says, "Give me your money." And My friend, a reflex reaction with the umbrella that he had, knocks the gun. The gun goes off, the kid goes running, gun goes flying, and he only realized somewhere thereafter that he actually got hit, but didn't realize it because of the adrenaline in the moment. In any case, is that kid responsible, that teenager responsible for their choice? Absolutely. Absolutely responsible. At the same time, the consequence of a faulty choice is not something that he could decide. Well, because it deflected off the umbrella. It could have deflected, missed my friend entirely. It could have deflected, and God forbid, he wouldn't be here today. But it deflected in such a way that it hit him in a way that he didn't realize in the moment. But in any case, the point is, the deflection off the umbrella is not happenstance. That is completely directed by the hands of heaven. So, if you recognize that, then you wouldn't get angry when something happens to you because of what happened to you. Now, you might be angry at a person, and we'll learn more about that later, for the ill choice that they make because of the lack of integrity that a person has. Absolutely. But that's not the most of the time we get angry is because I got hurt physically, financially, whatever the case may be. So we have here a kind of a paradox. Person's irresponsible, and yet the consequence of it is something that was orchestrated as meant to be. How do we understand that exactly? How do we wrap our minds around this? The harm was meant to be. Now, there's two things here. Of course, why would there be harm? That's one question, which we're really not going. Why would God allow that harm? And actually, to go a step further, as we explained, the harm isn't that God merely allowed the person to choose to do harm. No, it goes a step further. I pick up my arm to help somebody. Where's that power come from? I don't create my own power. I'm not my own creator. Creator gives me the power to do that. I have the choice whether I want to use my arm to extend and give charity, or I want to give my hand to help somebody in need, carrying a heavy load or whatever. But the power to do it, it's not my power that's invested in me by God. So that's taking it a step further. So in the moment of the harm that's being done, God is not just allowing, but is giving the power to be able to do it. So the why we're not going to deal with right now, but how does this work is what we're going to. Why, that will be later on, not today's class. But how does this actually, how do you understand this? How does this work? So we're going to start with this. That's where we are. That was the intro. So this is based on a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, founder of the Hasidic movement. He says, based on a verse in Tehillim, in chapter 119, L'yolam dvorcha nitzav b'shamayim. God, forever your word stands in the heavens. Now this is in the second part of Tanya, and the Alter Rebbe in this letter quotes now from the second book of Tanya, Shar Yichud Ve'emunah, understanding the power of creator within creation. So he quotes from there that, what does this mean that the word of God is forever in the heavens? It means the combinations of letters which are making up the words of the creative utterance. What is a creative utterance in this instance? The Yehi Rakia B'Seich Hamayim, that there should be a firmament, a heavens above. Those letters, those words that are written in, actually from the story of creation, which we just read, Bereshis bara, in the Torah portion, this past Shabbos, They stand and remain vested in the heavens forever and animate and sustain the heavens. Now, not just the heavens, but everything of creation. The Word of God is within it, reverberating, giving it sustenance, giving it vitality, giving it existence at all times. This differs from the view of the philosophers who deny individual divine providence, that the Creator is engaged in His creation, because they have a false analogy. What's that false analogy? That false analogy is that when a craftsman makes their craft, so the silversmith makes a silver goblet, right? Then puts down the goblet. The goblet is an existence that's independent of its creator, the silversmith. And indeed it is. The moment the hands are removed from the silversmith after he makes it, it is no longer dependent on its maker. And that's how they look at creation. God created the world, fine. But now it's independent of its maker, as the goblet is independent of it, the silversmith. But as he says, their eyes are blinded by seeing the huge difference between something made from something, which is what a silversmith can do. A silversmith can only take a material, silver, that is malleable, that is soft, and can be shaped. So all he can do is take a something and form and make a shape. That's what he can do. And therefore, once he's, before it was independent, the silver of the silversmith. Afterwards, it's also independent after he forms and shapes it, but that's all he can do is form and shape it. Creation of heaven and earth, though, is creation, yesh miyayin, something from nothing, ex nihilo, which means that there wasn't a malleable product to begin with. There wasn't even an amoeba. There wasn't even a mustard seed. There was absolutely nothing. And from that nothing, meaning something beyond, again, nothing, not like, oh, that's really, that's very little, that's really insignificant. No, not something insignificant like a mustard seed, like some soup mix, and from there, creation comes. Well, where'd the soup mix come from? Where'd the amoeba come from? No, absolute nothingness, because there had to be a moment before creation, absolute nothingness. And the truth is, we have a difficulty with understanding that. But the Alter Rebbe gives a metaphor, something that we can understand what it means. The difference between the silversmith who makes something and that product is independent of the silversmith. All he does is form and shape it, as opposed to creation. So the metaphor is the splitting of the sea, when the Jews crossed the sea after escaping from Egypt, right? So it says in the Torah that there was an easterly wind blowing very strongly, and it made water that its nature is to flow stand like a wall. The moment the easterly wind finished blowing, what happened? Well, the sea went back to its natural state, which is flowing and no longer standing like a wall. So the Alter Rebbe says this is a beautiful metaphor that we can understand the idea that you need the constant engagement, a power, the constant power to be within the water to make it stand like a wall. So likewise, you need why? Because it needs to change from its nature of flowing water to now water that sounds like a wall. And that can only be because there is a constant force within it. Well, same thing is in creation. Before the world was created, there's nothing. Nothing that you can give a definition to. There's no, nothing. Nothing. Nothing we comprehend, nothing we can experience. God. That's it. And now all of a sudden there's a something? Well, the only way that that could be is because the constant force of that creator within the something that's being created to give it existence. Not alone, not let alone giving it form and shape. To give it literally existence. The moment that power of the creator is removed, what happens? What happens? That's it. There goes existence. It reverts. Now, God doesn't do that, so we don't experience that. But that's not the point. Right? Now, what is that power of God that we're talking about that brings into existence? Well, that's called the Word of God. The breath of his mouth, as it were. The 10 utterances that are in the book of Genesis. Right? Now, from there, that speaks about general creation, but the details of creation, all of different species of animals, species of vegetation. Where do they come about? Well, they come about from combinations, substitutions, transpositions, even the numeric value of the letters, the original letters that are in the utterances of the 10 that are mentioned in Torah, like let there be light, right? And so on and so forth. You know, the sun be placed in its. So you can take combinations here. The Alter Rebbe doesn't deal with this over here, but like fire isn't mentioned in the 10 utterances, but the sun is. So you take combinations of letters, like the shin from fire, and from the word or, light, you take the letter aleph, put those two letters together, aleph shin, they become now, those letters making that word become the vibrant force of creating the existence with its nature and parameters of what it is called fire. Even when it comes to inorganic things, still it's the Word of God that's giving it life. So you might think, okay, things that are, that have some form of life, like an animal, okay, get it. Or maybe even a vegetation, something grows. No, even a rock, right? Even a rock has in it, Evan, the word Evan, for example, stone. Those letters become the vital force that God speaks it into being constantly. And if we're to revert or to remove the word from within the created thing, it wouldn't exist. Go back to nothingness. Just as the water goes back to its natural way of flowing. And that's just a metaphor for us to understand, right? And this is what the Arizal explains, that there's a soul even in the inorganic, even in the rock, even in the stones and the dust and water, that display no sign of life. But they're vital force, they're alive. With the Word of God, the soul of it, that word is the soul of it, that gives it vitality. Powerful idea.